Welcome back, guys, to Fear Begins, a step towards the horror. In today's episode, I'm sharing 7 true, disturbing stories about creepy Appalachian encounters. These stories come straight from the deep woods where the map ends and something else begins. But before we begin, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends and family. I'd also love to hear where you're listening from. Thank you all for your support. It means a lot to me. Now let's start. The pickup location was way out in the Virginia Appalachians, past the usual hiking spots, beyond the dirt roads people still name after their uncles. The job wasn't labeled, just a set of coordinates printed on matte paper, a grainy photo clipped to the top, and one note typed in uppercase. Target is male, 19 years old. Use carfentanil, do not underestimate. I remember holding that paper and staring at the line. Do not underestimate. That's not something you see often in this business normally. It's all about discretion, timing, contingencies, not warnings. Still, I took the job. The payout was too good, and it was clean. No digital trail, no negotiation. Just money half-wired through a laundering front we'd used before. The rest in vacuum-sealed bundles, dropped off at a P.O. box in cold water. I didn't even need to sign for it. Del and I had a rule. We don't turn down clean money unless something screams. And this job, it whispered, unsettling. Yeah, but not loud enough. Del was 10 years ahead of me in age and about 100 in experience. Ex-Army, though he didn't brag about it. The guy had this quiet, grim way of carrying himself like he'd already died a few times and just kept walking. Scars on both legs from a failed compound recovery down in El Salvador. He didn't talk about that much. We'd been working together close to 4 years by then, mostly retrievals and high-risk security escorts. Never asked why, never stuck around after. If someone wanted a warm body delivered somewhere, we got it done. No questions. That was the line. You start asking why, and suddenly you're part of it. This job, though, it was different from the start. The kid we were sent for didn't exist. No records, no birth certificate, no ID, no name, just a face and an age. The coordinates put him somewhere in the deep woods, off-grid, allegedly in a hand-built A-frame cabin that wasn't on any property ledger or satellite map. Del pulled some chatter off survivalist forums and black sites, stuff that never stays up long. Most of it was garbage. One post just read, "It's not just wild, it's wrong." Another claimed to have seen a pale figure walking naked in the trees, moving like it had too many bones. That one stuck with me. Del dismissed it all. You know how it is. Someone sees a shadow, next thing you know, it's a skinwalker. I wanted to believe he was right, but I still packed extra ammo. We couldn't take the truck all the way in. Road gave out about 6 miles from the coordinates, so we hiked it. Steep incline, rocky ridgelines, overgrown trails that looked like they hadn't been walked in years. The trees got denser the farther we went. No birds, no wind. Just the sound of our boots and the occasional click that vanished before you could find the source. That silence started getting to me. It wasn't peaceful. It felt staged, like everything around us had gone still because we were there. By the end of the second day, we were exhausted. Set up camp without a fire, too risky. We kept it cold and quiet, shared binoculars and took turns watching the woods. At exactly 3:17 a.m., I saw him standing maybe 40 yards away between 2 tall pines, completely still, like he'd been standing there a long time before I noticed. He didn't move, didn't flinch, and then he stepped backward and disappeared behind the trees. I didn't sleep after that. Just lay there staring at the canopy, waiting for something else to move. At dawn, we found the shelter nestled in a hollow, almost camouflaged by the hillside. The A-frame wasn't ruined, but it looked absorbed, like the forest had started taking it back, but then changed its mind. No smoke, no markings, but the path to the door had been cleared, like someone swept it with a hand broom. Even the leaves looked organized. I positioned myself 50 yards up, prone behind a fallen tree with a Tran rifle. Del looped around to cover the opposite side. I had a direct line of sight on the entrance. At 6:04 a.m., the door creaked open. He stepped out slow, almost robotic. No shoes, shirtless, long stringy hair hanging like spiderwebs, skin so pale I could see blue veins through the scope. But it was the way he moved that made my chest tighten. Like his body didn't belong to him. I squeezed the trigger. The dart flew perfect, just under the collarbone. He didn't even blink. He reached up, plucked the dart out like it was a splinter, and looked right at me. Through the scope, our eyes locked. That green burned into my memory, unnatural, almost as synthetic, like something copied the color, but didn't understand it. Then he turned around and walked back inside. I waited. Dell returned, asked if I missed. I didn't even look at him. "No," I said. It was a clean hit. We waited another 10 minutes, no movement, so we approached. I kept my rifle up. Safety off. Inside the cabin, it was sparse. One cot neatly made. A steaming tin cup of tea untouched. A pile of bones on a shelf not labeled. And the dart set down on the floor parallel to the cot like someone had placed it there. He was gone. Dell stepped out to do a perimeter check. I stayed in, checked the back wall. The mirror cracked, but recently cleaned. I was just about to follow him when he screamed, and Dell didn't scream. I bolted out and saw him half sunk into the ground, arms above, torso up. But everything from the waist down, swallowed by a fresh hole at the base of a cedar. "Something's got me," he shouted. "It's pulling." As I grabbed him, tried to pull, dirt was flying everywhere, but whatever had him, it was winning. I felt the force like a rope yanking back and forth. Then came this awful snapping noise from deep in the ground, and he was gone. Like someone flushed him down. I dropped to my knees, shined my light down the hole. It spiraled like a throat. Then I saw fingers, then a shoulder, then a face. It was him or something that used to be him, and it was crawling up. His mouth unhinged, jaw sagging down like a broken mask. The skin over his face was stretched tight, like it had forgotten how to fit. His spine shifted under the skin like it was rearranging. He made a sound, not a growl, not a scream. Just a hum that ate every other noise around it. I didn't wait. I ran until my lungs burned and my vision blacked out at the edges. I didn't stop until I saw my truck rusted and half covered in vines. It started on the second try. I drove 13 hours. Straight without stopping, no food, no bathroom, just white knuckles and adrenaline. When the tank ran out, I left it, grabbed my bag, and walked until I hit a main road. Paid a stranger $300 cash to drive me over state lines. That night, I dumped everything, ID, licenses, SIMs. Burned it all, took a new name, moved again. That had been nearly an hour back. Not even a mailbox in sight. Just gravel roads and trees stretching forever, and the quiet. Honestly, I think that's what pushed me further in. Originally, my cousin was supposed to join. We'd been planning the hike for weeks, a simple 2-night escape from everything. But the morning of, he texted around 7 a.m. claiming his dad needed help with fence posts. Said he couldn't back out. I didn't buy it. Sounded like one of those polite excuses people use when the woods start to feel too real. I thought about calling him out, but didn't. I just replied no problem. Tossed my bag in the car and went alone. I'd done solo hikes before, nothing extreme, no Everest or through hikes. But I knew my way around the woods. A couple day trips. One solo overnight near a lake, though that was close to a campground with families and paddle boards. Enough people to feel safe. This trail wasn't like that. Barely maintained, no recent reports online, no service once you left the main road. No ranger station, not even a real entrance sign. That's what made it appealing, though I hadn't meant to start so late. Checked my watch when I parked. 5:42 p.m. Later than I wanted, but manageable. I figured I could knock out a few miles before dark. I stretched, laced my boots, hoisted my pack, and started up the trail. The silence was strange, not creepy at first, just unusually still. A few birds in the distance, but no breeze, no insects, nothing close. I ducked under a sagging sign with the word trail barely visible in peeling paint, and the trees swallowed me whole. The first mile went fine. Steady climb, damp leaves, my boots holding grip. But the incline was steeper than the topo map suggested. Not brutal, but enough to make me keep checking my watch, calculating how far I could realistically push before losing light. The map showed a creek around mile 4 seemed like a solid place to camp. That became the goal, but the canopy thickened fast. Shadows fell quicker than I expected. By mile 3, I gave in and clicked on my headlamp. The trail narrowed through a steep set of switchbacks before leveling into a ridge. That's when I spotted the clearing, maybe 15 feet across, just off the path. A ring of blackened stones sat there from old fires. No trash, no footprints, just a forgotten feel, like no one had used it in years. I stopped, caught my breath, listened. Nothing, just silence again. That was enough for me. I sat up, strung a tarp between 2 trees, dug out wood from beneath a fallen log, coaxed a fire with flint and steel. Dinner was a can of stew warming on a flat rock while I laid out my pad, checked gear, and made sure my essentials were close. Flashlight, boots, knife, always. The trail was maybe 30 feet off, swallowed by dark my fire couldn't reach. Total black beyond that. I was halfway through the stew when something landed beside my boot. Soft sound, like a stone hitting dirt. Then a bounce. I pointed my headlamp. A rock, pale, smooth, golf ball sized, sitting there on undisturbed leaves, no slope, no branches above. It hadn't fallen, it had been thrown. I froze. No gasp, just absolute stillness. Brain scrambling for explanations. Slowly, I swept my beam across the trees. 10, maybe 15 feet of visibility. Enough to know I was exposed, not enough to see what had thrown it. I stayed crouched, stew can in one hand, light in the other, waiting, scanning. 15 minutes crawled by, no movement. Finally I started breathing again, told myself it could have rolled from higher ground, maybe a squirrel. Kicked it loose. Didn't feel right though, not at all. I cleaned up, killed the fire to low coals, slid under the tarp, knife under one hand, flashlight under the other. At some point I drifted off, only to jolt awake. No sound, no dream, just a sudden wired alertness. The air was heavy, pressure like the moment before a storm. Then leaves, shuffling, steps, then pause. Not close enough to see, not far either. I reached for my flashlight, turned quick, scanning, and froze. The light wasn't where I'd left it. It was 12 feet out in the leaves, facing the woods. Someone had moved it. I don't roll in my sleep. I don't toss gear. It hadn't moved on its own. I shoved my boots on without tying them, crouched by the fire, fed it 2 thick branches. Knife clutched tight. Running the trail in the dark crossed my mind, but with someone already creeping around and my light tampered with, it felt safer to stay where I could see. I stayed awake the whole night. Every hour I heard movement, always in the trees, always just out of reach. Once it even sounded like pacing, slow, deliberate, then silence, then the sound of bark being scraped. I didn't sleep. By pre-dawn, it got worse. Footsteps this time, closer, maybe 7 feet away. Steady, not sneaking, not running, just walking. They stopped behind a tree right at the edge of my tarp. I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there. For nearly 2 hours I sat frozen, knife ready, eyes locked on the firelight flickering over my pack. Nothing moved, nothing breathed. Then the sky started to pale, gray, then blue. The forest exhaled, birds returned. I didn't waste a second. Packed fast, laced my boots so tight they hurt, didn't eat. Just checked gear and stepped onto the trail without looking back. 3 miles out. Every twig snap made me spin. Every squirrel sent my heart into my throat. When I saw the clearing where my car was parked, I sprinted, nearly dropped the keys, slammed the door, locked it, backed out so fast I scraped the bumper. Didn't care, just drove. Didn't stop until pavement. Pulled into a gas station outside. Galax, grabbed a Red Bull just to breathe again. The girl at the counter asked if I'd been camping. I nodded, didn't say a word. That summer, my cousin Lark and I got into this unspoken competition. Late night drives to nowhere, sketchy house parties, gas station dinners. But that trip we took into the Blue Ridge backcountry, that was the one that stuck, not just because it was stupid, it was, but because I still can't explain what happened out there. She'd just gotten her license reinstated finally, after months of court stuff and the long fallout from a messy breakup that kind of gutted her. I think part of her needed to feel capable. Again, like she could survive something hard and still come out with her head up. And honestly, I just needed a break from Charleston. I was sick of campus, sick of traffic, sick of hearing my roommates argue about dishes. We didn't put much planning into it, which now seems insane. We found this old paper map her dad had buried in a drawer. Probably hadn't been updated since the 80s. And he'd marked this loop trail right near the Carolina-Georgia line, Saadid. Hiked it in college. It ran through some old coal land, mostly overgrown and off-grid. No phone reception, no ranger station. But the way he talked about it made it sound like the perfect place to disappear for a couple of days. We left around 9 o'clock in the morning and hit the end of the road by noon. And I do mean the end. The road just kind of gave up halfway up a ridge. Like it got tired of pretending to be useful. We parked next to this busted-looking sedan that had clearly been there for a while. The windows were clouded with grime, and it didn't have any plates, just this faint outline where they used to be. The tires had sunk a little into the gravel. I pointed it out, said, "That's sketchy." But Lark just shrugged. "Probably hunters," she said. We climbed over a rusted gate that barely hung on its hinges and started walking. Right away, the heat smacked us. It was thick, humid, and didn't let up. Within minutes, my shirt was sticking to my back, and my legs felt like I'd wrapped them in wet towels. The trail was faint, barely more than a suggestion. Cutting through dense brush that seemed way too tall for late summer, we followed the northern fork, heading toward what used to be a creek bed. Dry now, just packed dirt and pale rock scattered like someone had dropped a puzzle and lost interest halfway through. No signs, no markers. Just this narrow track that curled around a ridgeline and dipped into a dark patch of trees where the canopy swallowed most of the light. Everything got quieter the deeper we went. First the birds stopped, then the bugs, then even our footfalls. Seemed too loud, that silence. It wasn't peaceful. It felt staged, like something had paused the forest. "You don't realize how much background noise there usually is until it's gone," I said. "You feel that? Like something's off?" Lark didn't say anything. She just slowed down, scanned the trees behind us for a long second, and then picked up the pace. That was the first time I felt actual tension from her, and she's usually the one laughing at danger. Then we heard it behind us, one set of footsteps, just one crunch, drag, stop. We both stopped walking. I turned, expecting to see someone else on the trail, maybe a solo hiker who'd followed us in. But there was no one, just empty woods and the way we came, stretching back in absolute silence. We waited. Nothing moved. No birds, not even a branch swaying. It felt like the whole forest had turned into a photograph. We started walking again, slower this time. I counted steps in my head. 1, 2, 10. Then again. Behind us, crunch, drag, stop, closer, heavier. It didn't sound like someone trying to sneak up on us. It sounded like they didn't care if we heard. I whispered, "Someone's following us." Lark gave me this quick look, tense, jaw tight, and nodded. She didn't even pretend to brush it off. The trail curved uphill, and on the left side, there was this ridge with a collapsed shelter leaning sideways against a chunk of rock. It looked like one of those old-school Appalachian shelters from decades ago, the kind that were more wood than function. The roof had caved in on one side, but part of it still stood. A thick rope hung from a bolt embedded in the rock wall. Dirty and stiff, but still holding. I pointed up and said, "We're going up now." Lark didn't argue. We scrambled for the rope and climbed. The rock was rough and my boots slipped once near the top, but we made it. Once we were up there, crouched behind what was left of the shelter. We had a clear view of the trail. I was still catching my breath when Lark suddenly stiffened. She didn't speak, just stared. A man had stepped out from the trees, maybe 20 feet behind where we'd just been. He wasn't dressed for hiking, just jeans, scuffed boots, and a tan jacket. Zipped halfway, no pack, no gear, nothing about him said, "I belong here." He looked like someone who'd wandered out of a DMV line and into the forest by mistake. But it wasn't just that. It was the way he moved or didn't. He didn't call out. Didn't seem confused. He just stood there, head slightly tilted, eyes locked on where we were, like he'd known exactly where we'd gone. I called down, "We don't want any trouble. We're just hiking through." No reaction, nothing. Not even a blink. Then, without breaking eye contact, he started walking toward the rock. Slow steps, intentional, not rushed. He reached the base, looked up, and put one hand on the rope, just held it. I grabbed a piece of broken shale near my foot. It had a jagged edge and a bit of heft. "Lark," I said quietly, "grab something solid. If he climbs, we don't let him get up here." She moved fast. Found 2 rocks near the collapsed roof and brought them over. We crouched, weapons in hand, waiting. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stared. Then after what felt like hours, but couldn't have been more than a minute, he blinked, let go of the rope, and stepped back. Not like someone giving up, more like someone backing into a lake, calm, unblinking. He vanished into the trees without a sound. We waited 20 minutes, maybe more, still nothing. No sounds, no animals, no wind. Then we heard a crack. One clean branch snapping off to our left. "That was enough," I whispered. "We're going, you first." Lark didn't argue. She eased down the rope, landed light, and turned to keep watch while I followed. My legs felt like concrete, but I didn't let them slow me. Once we were both on the ground, we moved, no talking. Just steady steps, ears sharp, eyes scanning the shadows. Then slowly the forest started coming back to life. A buzz of a mosquito, a rustle in the leaves, then bird song. As if whatever had paused, everything decided it was over by the time we reached the truck. Everything sounded normal, but too normal, like someone hit play on a sound machine. We checked everything, opened the cab, looked under the bed. Nothing, no signs of anyone. Before getting in, I turned and looked back at the trail. I thought I saw a movement, something just past the tree line. But it could have been wind, or it could have been him. Still watching, we drove out in total silence. Didn't speak until we hit signal again, somewhere near Fairmore. I tried pulling up the trailhead on my phone. Nothing. The road we took didn't even show up. That was the last time I ever went hiking without telling someone exactly where I was going. Back then I had a job that didn't really fit in polite conversation. People would ask, "So what do you do?" And I'd just shrug. I'd tell them, "I walk trails," and watch their faces twist in confusion. But that was the truth. It was the whole gig. Sometimes I worked for park services, other times private contractors. Most of the time it was just me, alone in the backcountry. Maps and drones are fine, but they can't tell you where the ground's washed out, or where ivy and briars have swallowed the trail whole. That month I took a contract in western North Carolina, deep Appalachia, where GPS signals die and your phone is just dead weight. The section I was assigned didn't even have a proper name, just Hatcher Gap Unit 3, which sounded more like a warehouse tag than a forest. The note said it hadn't been surveyed in 15 years. No campsites, no shelters, no trailheads, just blank green on the map, a place ignored, which explained why the payout was twice my usual rate. It took an hour just to find the access gate, or what used to be a gate, bent with rust, half-eaten. By kudzu, I parked the truck off a forestry road, shouldered my pack. 3 days, maybe 4, then out. That was the plan. Day 1 was tough but uneventful. The trail faint but passable. By nightfall I had a fire going and notes written in my log. It was the second day when things went wrong. The GPS readings stretched longer than they should have. Then came a ridge cut too clean through the trees, like someone had carved a corridor straight across the slope. No power lines, no markers, just grass and silence. On the other side, nailed to a pine, hung an old plank of wood, no letters, no numbers. Just weathered black grain staring back. I snapped a photo out of habit, because that's what you do. That night I heard voices, low, muffled, like whispers behind a wall, except there were no walls. And I was miles from anywhere. The next morning the photo was gone from my camera. Every shot of erosion and tree markings still there, but not the plank, not the sign, like it never existed. I told myself the shutter misfired, but I didn't believe it. By day 3 the trail collapsed into brush. I marked trees with paint. To retrace my path, 7 marks before midday, bright orange stripes on bark. Later I walked past the same mark again, compass still pointing north. That night I didn't light a fire, I stayed in the tent. Something brushed against the fabric. Slow and deliberate, like fingertips dragging along nylon, pausing to find the seams, I whispered, "Go away." And the trees whispered it back. Morning broke gray and wrong. No sun, no shadows. The compass spun lies, the GPS grids made no sense. Everywhere I went led me back to the first campsite. Even the painted blazes were gone, swallowed by the woods. I pushed downhill, trusting gravity more than tools. Hours later I reached a stream and thought I was saved, until I found trash on the bank, my trash, my tape. I had already been there before. Circling without knowing, the air grew heavy, the woods dead silent, then through a break in the trees. I saw it, the forestry gate, my truck still there under leaves and dust. It looked abandoned, like it had been waiting years. I ran, slammed the door, turned the key, and didn't stop until asphalt carried me out. When I called the office, the man on the line paused too long, then said no one had worked Hatcher Gap since 2006. 2 contractors had gone missing back then. Their gear turned up, but not them. The place was never officially closed, just forgotten, and I knew I should never have gone there at all. I was 38 when I picked up a contract job out in the western Appalachians. Not glamorous work, but it paid consistently, and more importantly, it did not require me to deal with anyone. The university had these research stations, 6 cabins spread out across the high ridges, way out where the roads end and GPS gets glitchy. During the warmer months, the cabins were used by biology grad students and field teams studying everything from salamanders to soil chemistry. But once the weather turned, the cabins sat empty. That is where I came in. They needed someone to keep the places from falling apart in the off-season. Run routine checks, make sure nothing had been chewed through or collapsed. Clear overgrowth if it got too aggressive. Inventory the equipment, test the solar units, and replace batteries. Just enough maintenance to keep the stations ready for spring. There was not a uniform or a truck or even much structure to it. Just a set of keys, some basic paperwork, and a weekly deposit into my account. The only real rule was to get to all 6 sites once per loop and log everything you did. I had been doing freelance land surveying and some part-time GIS stuff before that, so I was comfortable working alone in remote places. Honestly, I preferred it, and at the time, I figured a few months in the woods might help me reset a bit. I had been dealing with some stuff, needed the quiet. Each cabin had its own personality. You start to pick up on that when you are the only one going in and out for weeks at a time. Station 1 always had some wind whistling under the roof line. 2 had a flickering panel that never charged right. 3 was practically sinking into its own foundation. But Station 4 was something else entirely. It was the most isolated, sitting a full 7 miles from the nearest parking turnout. You could not even drive halfway. The old fire road that led up the ridge had collapsed into rubble years ago. Roots, stones, and these sharp drops where the ground had eroded under it. The only way to reach it was on foot, winding up through tight switchbacks that felt like they had been carved by deer. No signs, no trail marker, Just a faint path and one particular rock with a red scrape across it. Your only signal to turn left. Did not mind the hike. It was peaceful, tough, but in a satisfying way. The silence out there felt earned. The cabin itself was simple, small, square, sturdy. Just enough space for a workbench, a cot, a few cabinets. There was a front and back door. Both solid wood with old metal push-bar locks like you would see in a school. One key fit both, and I was told it was the only copy. No spares on campus, no hidden backup. It was on my third round. 3 full loops through all 6 stations, that. Things started to shift, middle October, leaves mostly down by then. The days were getting short fast. I had saved Station 4 for last. That loop reached it around 4:30 or so. The light was already slanting low, throwing everything into that kind of fake twilight you get in the hills. I stepped onto the porch, unlocked the front door, and walked inside like usual, dropped my backpack, started pulling out my inventory sheets. That is when I heard it. It came from behind me, sharp metallic. I knew immediately what it was. It was the sound of the rear door's lock disengaging. I stood completely still, just listened. Then the rear door creaked open, just a crack, and slammed shut so hard the windows rattled in their frames. Dust shook loose from the ceiling beams. My brain did not even have time to register a theory. I was already moving. I sprinted through the cabin, yanked the back door open, ready to confront something. A hunter, some trespasser. I do not know what I expected, but it was not what I found. Nothing, no footprints, no rustling in the trees, not even a squirrel darting off, just a steep slope and that heavy, unnerving quiet you get when the woods stop making noise. I stood there with both hands on the doorframe, scanning the trees for anything, movement, sound, breath. I felt like I had missed something obvious, but there was nothing. Just this unnatural stillness that did not feel like part of a forest. After a while, I went back in, locked both doors. Again, sat at the workbench, made myself focus, pulled the GPS from my chest strap. It was one of those clunky yellow units, real hard to lose, and I set it down next to the lantern. Then I stepped out back to the little storage shed. Just 10 minutes, maybe less. I checked the water tanks, noted the levels, grabbed a fuse kit I needed for one of the inside panels. When I came back inside, the GPS was gone. At first, I thought maybe I had just misplaced it. I went over every inch of the cabin, searched under the cot, inside the gear locker, even behind the old heater in case it had fallen. Nothing. I dumped my pack out, went through it methodically, flipped through the battery drawer, even opened the first aid kit like maybe I had stuffed it in there without thinking. It was gone. I was still crouched by the bunk when I remembered. The crawl space hatch, it is in the middle of the floor. I had only opened it once before, just to check it off the first week. It led down to a shallow pit where they stored backup food, a couple wool blankets, a fire extinguisher. It had its own small padlock, different key also on my ring. I did not think I had dropped the GPS down there, but I figured why not check everything. I unlocked the hatch and lifted it open. There it was, the GPS standing perfectly upright in the center of the crawl space. Screen facing the ladder like it had been posed. I remember blinking really slowly like my brain was buffering. I climbed down one step, reached for it, picked it up. Still warm from earlier, still powered on. I did not say anything, just closed the hatch, locked it again, and stood there holding the GPS like I had never seen one before. Then came the click, front door this time. I did not even have to turn around. I knew the sound, same as before. The door creaked open halfway, then slammed shut again, harder than the last time, deep, resonant, final. I did not check. I did not move. I just locked both doors again, shrugged my coat on, and stepped out onto the rock ledge at the clearing's edge, sat down cross-legged with my arms tucked in, staring out at the horizon. I did not go back inside until the sun had completely disappeared and the woods had gone pitch black. Even then I hesitated, but I could not leave yet. My pack was inside, so were the equipment logs. I still had a job to finish when I stepped back through the doorway. Something shifted. It is hard to explain. The pressure that had been building all afternoon, like someone standing way too close without touching you, just lifted. The air felt normal again. I slept that night, but not well. Woke up every half hour, sat up at every noise. My body kept expecting something else to happen. In the morning, I remembered the trail cam I had installed on the first loop, just under the awning, pointed at the front door. The footage was still there. At exactly 6:42 p.m., the door opened halfway, paused, then slammed shut with force. No person, no animal, no movement anywhere in the frame, just the door in silence. It kept happening after that, though never the same. Wait twice. Once I noticed my weather gauge missing from the log shelf. Found it 3 hours later, perched on the lid of the composting toilet behind Station 2 over 4 miles away. Another time, the maintenance binder that never left my backpack turned up behind the fire tower ladder at Station 1. I had not visited that cabin in over a week, and I never saw any signs of tampering. No broken locks, no forced doors, just items moving around quietly like they were being borrowed and returned in the wrong places. 1 week I left my backup radio on the desk. When I came back, it was inside the water barrel outside. Floating at the bottom, the lid was sealed tight. No scratch marks. Reason it should have been in there. I stopped telling the field office after a while. They did not take it seriously. One guy joked, "Maybe I had raccoons with a vendetta." Another said, "Maybe I was just tired." I kept that routine up for another few loops, and then I quit the job completely. I was 17 when it happened. My Uncle Cal worked one of those old fire towers out near the Virginia border, tucked deep in the Appalachian Mountains where cell signals do not even bother trying. His tower sat on this high ridge 5 miles and on foot from the nearest old logging road. No cabins, no side trails, nothing man-made except the path and the tower itself. Once a month, the ranger station would send someone up with basic supplies, water jugs, canned food, batteries, backup parts for the radio. It was not glamorous. But Cal liked the solitude. That month, though, he took a bad step on the stairs while feeding his dogs and rolled his ankle. Not broken, but bad enough he could not hike. So he called me. "You are young," he said. "Got strong legs. Think you can do the drop for me this time?" I said, "Sure." I liked Cal, and honestly, I liked the quiet too. I left early that morning. Right after sunrise, my parents let me borrow the truck, an old wheezy thing that groaned the whole way up the gravel road like it was protesting the effort. I parked where the road ends, grabbed the pack from the back, and headed out. All the usual signs were posted on the trailhead board. Watch for bears. Do not hike alone. Respect forest boundaries. But something new had been added to the old weather-warped wooden post. Right under the painted "Stay on the Trail" sign, someone had carved a face, not detailed, just weird. Long oval shape, eyes set too high, and this tiny straight line for a mouth. It looked new, fresh, like it had been cut in the past week. I ran my fingers over it, without really thinking. It did not mean anything at the time. The trail starts pretty flat, but by mile 2, you are definitely working. Roots, mud, a few places where the trail all but disappears under brush. By the 3rd mile, I was soaked in sweat and starting to regret not packing the second bottle of water. I stopped on a shale outcrop to take a breather. The trees were pressed in so tight on either side of the trail you could not see more than 10 feet into the woods. And there was this quiet, not peaceful exactly, more like the forest was holding its breath. I heard something shift behind me, branches moving, but not like a breeze, something heavy, slow. I turned fast. Nothing, no movement, no birds fluttering away. Just the stillness coming back in like a tide. I stayed frozen for a minute, listening. Then I kept walking faster than before, about halfway up the ridge. I saw someone coming down the trail toward me, an older guy, maybe mid-60s, with a gray beard and this patched-up canvas jacket that looked like it had been through some stuff. No backpack, no gear, just a long wooden stick he leaned on like a cane. He looked at me as we passed but did not speak right away, just a small nod, then real quiet, almost like an afterthought, he said, "Do not go past where the trees bend wrong." I stopped. "Sorry, what?" But he kept walking slow and steady like I had not said anything. I turned to look after him, maybe 10 seconds later. Nothing, just empty trail behind me, no movement, no sound of footsteps. It was like he just vanished. The tower came into view. Not long after, it sits right on the crest. This spindly rust-red frame with a weathered wooden lookout cabin on top. 30 feet tall, maybe more. The clearing around it is patchy grass and rock, not really enough room for anything but the tower itself and a little fire ring Cal never used. I climbed the spiral stairs and saw the trap door was already unlatched. Inside, everything was the same as always, minimal and tidy, cot in one corner, fold-out table with maps and logbooks, shelves with labeled storage bins. The radio unit blinked, like it was still receiving a weak signal. I dropped the pack, swapped out the old batteries, lined up the new water jugs, and plugged the charger into the solar panel. Then I flipped through the logbook. Cal always dated his entries and included little weather notes or odd wildlife sightings. But the last page had nothing written, no date. Number notes, just a drawing in the bottom corner. Pencil or charcoal pressed deep into the paper. It was that same face. Oval, eyes too high. Mouth curved down just slightly at the corners. It was not frowning, it was not smiling. It looked like someone trying to copy a human face from memory and getting it wrong. I did not love that. But I was tired, my legs ached, and the thought of hiking 5 miles back down before dark felt like more work than I cared to do, so I decided to stay the night. It was not against the rules exactly. Cal had done it plenty. I locked the trap door from the inside and pushed the cot over it, mostly just for peace of mind. Then I sat by the window for a while, watching the trees along the ridge fade into the dark. Sometime after 2 a.m., the motion light kicked on. It is a little thing mounted over the stairwell, barely enough to light the platform below. But the second it snapped on, I was wide awake. I sat up and looked through the gaps in the floorboards. The platform was lit, pale and still, but there were no footsteps on the stairs. No creaking, no wind, just silence. The light did not flicker, did not shut off. Just stayed on like someone was standing just out of view. I did not move, did not speak. I just sat there for hours staring through the floor, waiting for something, anything, to make a sound. Nothing did. At first light, I grabbed my bag and got out. I do not even remember eating. I just left. The cot was still against the trap door, and I stepped over it without even sliding it back. A mile into the descent, I hit the spot. I do not know how else to describe it, except the trees were wrong. They bent inward over the trail, but not from age or weight. They tilted towards something. The trunks leaned in like they were being pulled, or had twisted themselves on purpose. Their branches overlapped above like a canopy trying to seal the trail shut. The air underneath felt colder, even though the sun was up. I remembered the old man's voice. "Do not go past where the trees bend wrong." I considered going around, but the slope dropped off fast on both sides. There was not really a choice, so I walked through. Right in the middle of the bend, I saw a canvas nailed to a tree. Real painting, not some sketch. It was water damaged but clear enough to see. It showed the tower but distorted. The windows were just dark shapes like eye sockets. The antenna was missing, and the sky above was a sickly gray streak with jagged white lines that looked almost like teeth or cracks. A little further down, another painting leaned against a boulder. Same tower, but now the door was open. Something was standing inside. Tall, spindly arms, fingers too long, and the face. That same face, blank, watching. I turned around. The trail behind me looked totally normal, empty. Then came the third painting, right before the descent. It showed me standing at the trailhead, same clothes, same scar above my eyebrow. But behind me, crouched in the brush, was a figure. The same one lurking just out of reach, its head tilted slightly, face stretched, too long to be human. I left the pack, just dropped it and ran, did not stop, did not look back, did not breathe until I was back in the truck with the doors locked and my hands shaking. I did not answer Cal's calls for 3 days. Then the ranger station left a message, said he had gone up to the tower himself. He called me that night. His voice was stiff, strained. "You leave something behind?" he asked. I said, "No." He said there was a drawing on the desk. Looked like my style, but it was not. He said the sketch showed the two of us in the tower, standing across from each other. But my face, he said it looked wrong. The mouth stretched too far. The eyes were higher than they should be. And in the drawing, I was holding something out to him. Something small wrapped in bark. He said he did not open it. I told him not to touch anything else. Just burn the page. Get out of there. He said he would. Next morning, the ranger station called again. Cal was missing. They found the tower locked from the inside. The cot was still against the trap door. No signs of a struggle. No footprints on the stairs. I'm 62 years old, and I've spent just about my entire life working in, or around the Appalachian Mountains. I grew up in a house where the tree line wasn't something you visited. It was just there, like a fence around everything. Honestly, the woods raised me just as much as my folks did, probably more. I've cut timber in rain that had turned your skin purple, walked survey lines in places where the GPS just shrugs, and pulled overnight watch and hollers so quiet you could hear your heartbeat bounce off the trees. I've stumbled across bear dens, meth shacks, rusted out Cadillacs filled with bones that didn't look quite animal. I even ran into a guy once who claimed he hadn't spoken to another human in 12 years. But nothing I've seen, not a single strange or dangerous thing in all that time, ever worked its way under my skin like what I saw that winter out past Kinley Ridge, not far west of Ember Gap. Now my mother's people were Shawnee, and my grandmother didn't say much, but when she did, you listened. Her voice never really rose above a whisper, not even when she was mad, which was often. She had this presence to her, one of those people who could make you feel like you were the one being ridiculous for questioning her, even when she wasn't saying anything. She had these rules for the woods, stuff I used to roll my eyes at when I was younger. Like, don't whistle after dark, don't leave your boots pointed at the door when you sleep, and if you ever see someone in the woods trying to wave you over, don't follow them unless you're sure you saw them walk out of camp first. I asked her, why? Once, and she just said, there are things older than the trees out there. It wasn't meant to scare me. That was just her way. She gave you facts, not feelings. It was a warning, not a story. Back then, I didn't pay much attention. Chalked it up to old stories and quiet superstition until I didn't. This happened about 15 years ago. I was working a contract job for a logging company that had just secured some untouched acreage deep in the Blue Ridge. That timber was the real deal. Mature red spruce, fat old hickories, tulip poplar, thick as silos, big money trees. But it was isolated. The kind of isolated where the road turns to gravel, then the gravel turns to dirt, and then the dirt just ends and the rest is prayer. Our crew went in first to prep the access lines, open up trails wide enough for the machines to roll in without flipping sideways. It was rough terrain. Most of it was barely marked, and the roads were more memory than anything paved. We had 2 foremen, 6 guys in the field, and a handful of trailers set up on a ridge above this skinny valley. No cell coverage, radios only, and those had to be checked every 6 hours to make sure we hadn't fallen into a ravine or gotten taken out by a falling limb. That's when the equipment started going missing. First, it was just a chainsaw. Probably just misplaced, we thought. But then it was one of the portable generators. Not a small thing to lose. No one heard anything. No prints. Nothing on the trail cams we'd set up for bear activity. Figured maybe someone local was sneaking in stripping gear to pawn. I don't like feeling played, so I volunteered for night watch. Figured I'd sit up a few nights and put an end To it I kept things low-key, no big spotlights, just a flashlight, a radio, and a thermos full of truck stop coffee that probably qualified as a health hazard. Nights up there in January are, no joke, the kind of cold that bites through denim like it's tissue paper. You don't even shiver, you just go stiff. First 3 nights, dead quiet, a few raccoons, maybe a deer, normal stuff. But on the 4th night, somewhere around 2 o'clock in the morning, I heard voices. It wasn't shouting, not yelling or groaning, just soft talking, quick, like overlapping murmurs, male and female both. But the tone was strange, something about the rhythm. It wasn't English. At least not clearly. The words tumbled over each other like chanting, but too fast. The cadence reminded me of these old tapes my uncle used to have of Cherokee hymns. Same kind of lilt at the end of each phrase. That rising and falling flow. Familiar in a way that made me uneasy, though I couldn't have told you why. I was near the tool trailer when I heard it. The sound came from down the slope in the woods, just at the edge where my flashlight couldn't reach. I killed the light and crouched. The sound moved. Now it was up slope. Then it was behind me. No crunching, no footsteps, no sign of anything actually moving, just voices, hopping around like they were skipping across glass. I tried the radio, just static. I checked the trailers. 8 in all, every door locked. Everyone asleep, nothing out of place. I clipped my hatchet to my belt and stayed within reach of the main trailer until sunrise. The voices cut off about 10 minutes before first light, like someone yanked the plug. When the foreman came by to swap shifts, I told him I thought someone was scoping us out. He didn't blink, just said, "This ridge don't like being disturbed." I asked what he meant by that. He didn't answer, just walked off. 2 weeks later, we were working a new section near Weaver Hollow. That place had a reputation for weird weather. Fog that came in heavy and low, even when the sky was clear. Cold pockets that didn't burn off even by noon. Trees were taller, older, and some had this black streaking along the bark that looked almost charred. But there hadn't been a fire out there in decades. That day I was paired with Micah, a younger guy from Lancaster, good worker, new to the woods. His idea of camping was hotel cable not working. We were laying fiber through a new flagged route between ridge lines. Took the ATV out, followed the markers, but the trail didn't line up with the map. Boulders weren't where they were supposed to be. A stand of trees we passed an hour earlier showed up again on the other side. Something was off. Then we rolled into this clearing that wasn't marked anywhere. It looked unnatural, too circular, too flat, like someone scooped out a chunk of the mountain. There wasn't any birdsong, no bugs. Just silence, dense and waiting. I stopped the ATV. Micah hopped out, started fiddling with his phone, trying to check signal. I stayed seated, map open in my lap, trying to figure out how he got turned around. That's when I saw the deer. Big buck, maybe 8 points, just standing near the tree line, facing sideways, but its head was turned all the way toward us. Ears flicking, not grazing, just watching. Then the trees opened. No crack of branches, no rustle of leaves, just open like a door. And something stepped out. It wasn't a bear. I know bears. This thing walked like a man, except nothing about it was human. Broad-shouldered, arms too long, almost down to its knees, reddish fur, matted in places, head low, sunk into the chest like it had no neck. And the face is what still visits me. The eyes were deep set, no whites, no shine, just flat black pits that didn't reflect light. The mouth hung slack, square teeth packed too tight, more than should fit in a jaw. It moved fast, 3 strides, and it had the buck, one hand on the antlers, the other gripping the hind quarters, a twist in the deer folded like wet paper. Then it looked at me, not just at me, into me, and I felt it. My whole chest clenched and my legs locked. Like I'd been flash frozen. I didn't breathe, didn't blink. Then it turned around and walked back into the trees, carrying that buck like it weighed nothing. Micah never saw it. Eyes glued to his phone the whole time. I didn't say a word. Just started the TV end. Told him we were pulling back. He didn't ask why. We found the correct trail an hour later. Finished the run in silence. Got back right before dusk. Foreman was waiting. He asked, "How'd the ridge look?" I said, "We got off track, terrain's weird, but we got it done." He stared at me a little longer than necessary. Then he said, "All right, don't go that way again, tomorrow." I nodded, didn't argue, didn't ask. I never told Micah what I saw, never told my kids.